Well, on Campbell's Comments now, I am joined by Nicolle Ranteen Reynolds. How do I go with the second name, Nicolle?
The Reynolds was good. Rantanen.
Rantanen, very good.
Yes.
I have a show where I talk a lot, yet I can get my tongue around some of the best words, and your surname is a mouthful. Firstly, thank you very much for joining me.
Not a problem at all.
Now, you are with the South Australian government. You're tied up with the South Australian government, and you've been elected as a board director, I believe, to try and, I suppose, shore up for a start and hopefully try and grow South Australian harness racing.
Yes, I was appointed on the 1st of October 2020, like last year. And I bring, sorry, I've got a cat.
It's okay. That's fine.
And I've got a number of, I bring skills in. I've got financial skills and legal skills. And so I sit on a number of other boards. So when I applied to join the harness racing board and was accepted, I was absolutely delighted. Wanted to help the industry. I'm horse mad. So, we've got, my husband and I own a number of thoroughbreds, and we've recently in the last 6 months purchased into a yearling, a harness race, a standard bred yearling. So we're quite excited about that. And Danielle Hill, who is South Australia's leading reins person, is going to train it. So really, really happy about that. But lots of interesting things going on in the harness racing industry, and happy to chat about any of them.
Firstly, I just want to take you back to one thing you just said then. You applied for this position. So you actually, I gather you would have had a little bit of a background as to what was going on. And we spoke just before starting this interview that we hear a lot of different reports here in Victoria and the likes. And I would imagine that in a government job, probably the same thing. You get told one thing, and then when you look at figures and all the rest. But you actually applied for this job for a reason of keeping harness racing going. Was that the key reason for you applying and trying to make a difference?
Look, I am very much, I love a challenge. I love anything where you need to negotiate and where, there's an opportunity to fix things. So, I could see that there was conflict between lots of parties across the industry. In my day job, I'm used to negotiating and used to dealing with, people who have diverse opinions. But my whole thing is, if you want to do something, get on a board, make a difference, throw yourself into it completely and sort of, embrace the industry and work out how you can help. But, sitting on the sidelines is just not going to do it for me. So, throw myself into it, see how I can go. And, I do bring skills with me. And, I haven't found anything that I haven't been able to negotiate. It's not always a win for one side, but if you can negotiate something that both sides can live with, I think you can find a way forward.
Is harness racing from your government job, is harness racing important in South Australia? Because that's one of the things we hear, that they don't really care. The government don't really care. They're not worried about racing in general. It's not just harness racing either, and the likes. Are they keen for racing to continue and to prosper?
I think every industry that contributes to the economy is important. But I am a public servant, so I cannot comment in relation to the government and the way that they actually allocate funding. But there is so much funding to go around, for a state as a whole, and it's the government of the day that makes choices. That's not something that I can comment on, but I hope that, because racing contributes, be it thoroughbreds, be it greyhounds, be it harness, to the economy, hopefully we can highlight the benefits that we bring.
Yep. So you haven't been on the board for very, very long. Early last week, there was a couple of meetings or board meetings, and the president stepped down. George, I don't know George's last name, but he actually stepped down from his position.
Yes, that's George Fiarchi. I think he'd been chair for about 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
So,
And he stepped aside, which there's again conflicting reports. Some people are saying, "Oh, it's no good for harness racing because he was a good man." Other people say it's a good thing. From your point of view, as a government person, to keep the industry going, it just opens up another challenge, I would imagine. And you've come to me here today, and you are not standing to be president or in charge. You're actually just coming because right at the minute you are the spokesperson because George has stepped aside.
that is spot on. Look, I have no aspirations to be the new chair. My aim is to help the industry however I can, and support and provide information and ongoing communication. From my perspective, George did a lot of very positive things, but because we only have a small office in South Australia, and a small number of staff, from a chairman's perspective is actually quite a lot of work. So because you actually have to, in a lot of boards, other boards that I'm involved in, the chairperson is a step removed, doesn't get involved necessarily in the operational functioning, because you've got enough staff to do that. In harness racing, we've only got a small number of people. The time commitment is larger than any other, board as a consequence, mainly because our intention is to save as much money as possible so we can put it back into prize money. So you don't want too bigger overheads in your office. So from George's perspective, I understand where he's coming from in that by saying that, he was putting in 15 to 20 hours a week. It's a lot, if you're involved in other sporting organisations, other boards, and you have your work on top of that.
Yeah.
So I completely understand where that's coming from.
So I'd imagine, and we're going to get to the outcomes, well, not the outcomes, but what was raised in a couple of these meetings, but I would imagine that's one of your great challenges right at the minute, is to get someone that is driven enough and worldly enough for a start, because everyone knows how to fix it. There's no worries there. Every person knows how to fix it, but reality is it takes a very smart person to be able to do it. So you've got to try and find the right person that, one, has the time, I would imagine, to have that 15, 20 hours. And some people might say, oh, that's not a lot, but George is probably putting in 50 to 60 on another job. He might be putting in 10 to 20 on another job as well before he knows that he has no time. So you need someone that's possibly got that time, the passion, and then also agrees with the way that the industry is heading.
Yes, and so from our perspective, look, I'm lucky. We have I have two other very good board members with me, Emma Grigson-Gear and Scott Barclay. We are very united and we share similar ideas, which makes it easy going forward. We've asked the Minister to consider appointing another person because we need an additional person for a quorum. That additional person hopefully will be named within a week. So that will, there's a selection committee process that it goes to. So hopefully that will happen within the next week. We'll be back to quorum. We have another meeting. We had last Wednesday night a meeting with the shareholder clubs, which was very productive. And that was actually called as a special shareholders meeting. The clubs actually called it. But following last Wednesday's meeting, we've actually said, well, why don't we have another meeting? Don't worry about calling it a special general meeting, a special whatever. Let's just have a meeting in a month's time. I think we're aiming for around the 21st of July to actually, we said there were a number of areas that we covered off. We're going to actually revisit those and give an update on the progress we've made in each of them. So,
is one of those unity, like to get all the clubs on the same page? Is that one of the initial things that's probably been brought up and one of the challenges?
Look, George did a lot of work in relation to unity prior to his resignation, having lots of meetings and consultation. Where we're at the moment is we really need to be very open and transparent about what we've got on our plate, exactly where we are from a progress perspective, and how we're going to move things forward. It's more a process and a doing meeting rather than, the fact that I think it's a great step that around our table now is we have Globe Derby. We have all of the country clubs represented. We have HRSA at the table. The fact that we are all meeting and we're having a very respectful and engaging discussion means that, from my perspective, that in itself is a show of unity. We've also, there's a few things that we also need to do. There's in our constitution, it talks about setting up an industry advisory committee. So that's something that actually links in, members of the industry as well as the clubs. So we'll look at things like that to actually ensure that everyone's getting the same message. But, you've got to start somewhere.
Is one of the problems, one of the ones I hear a lot of, is the members and Globe Derby, selling Globe Derby, keeping Globe Derby, and how Globe Derby actually works as far as being, the South Australian mantle, I suppose. Like it's your premier track, it's your number one. It might not be the best track. People might say other tracks are better and all the rest. But Globe Derby is your home at the minute, and
Yep.
Is that one of the challenges that you can see? And is there some light at the end of the tunnel, maybe?
Look, I was lucky enough to be in Brisbane 2 weeks ago at the Stradbroke Thoroughbred Racing, and I caught up with Kevin Seymour, who's involved with Globe Derby. We had a good chat about harness racing and the like. It's important to show the industry that, we have a long-term commitment to Globe Derby. The infrastructure around it, the land and the like, is, could be improved. But Kevin Seymour is going to work with the people at Globe Derby, to look at long-term sources of income and the like. And but he's a harness racing man, and we're really delighted that, from his perspective, he wants to keep harness racing in South Australia and work with the Globe Derby Club. From my perspective, we as a board, we can work with the board of Globe Derby. We have a good relationship with them. I've been talking quite a number of times with Mr. Seymour. We have a good open relationship and can talk. If we can get a long-term lease, 5 years or so, it gives the industry certainty and stability, which is so important, for its long-term survival in South Australia. So, I suppose that's, yeah.
So long-term survival, 5 years. There'll be some people who will sit back and say that's not very long term. I would imagine that's what you're aware of that. But I mean,
Yep.
It would be 5 years as your stepping stone. Improve things, get things going in the right way. Then
Yep.
maybe
Look, I would like 10 years and the like. But from my perspective, let's start somewhere. Let's lock in some terms. Let's lock in some, some funding and the way that we're going to structure an arrangement. Let Kevin Seymour and Globe Derby look at how they structure. There's no reason why we can't renegotiate, re-talk. It's just starting the process of making sure that we have something in place to give people some certainty. And if we can extend it longer term, by all means, I think that'd be great for the industry.
One of the other things you're saying there is trying to shore up some sort of financial stability, I suppose, is possibly the best way of putting it for I suppose everyone involved, from the people that win a race to the people that are standing on the gate, and getting people in and getting them in the right area.
Yeah, look, from HRSA's perspective, from the board's perspective, we got a financial health check of our organisation, because the way we were structured wasn't necessarily sustainable. We were paying out prize money without knowing what our actual income would be, because we are a business that has funds in and funds out. Betting revenue in, prize money out, plus some to manage our operations. From our perspective, if you pay out whatever it is, say 5,000 in prize money, and you don't get enough betting revenue to cover that, well, someone's got to find the difference. Not long-term sustainable. So what we're looking at doing is saying the greyhounds have a model, whereby they pay a certain percentage of the prize money, within a week of the actual event. And then 6 weeks or thereabouts later, they pay the balance depending on the actual wagering on the event. So from our perspective, it's about ensuring that we actually better match cash flows. It's something we talked about with the shareholder clubs. If we have a wonderful, huge number of bets or betting revenue, we may pay more than, we may pay 110% of the actual prize money, or we may pay 90%, but it's totally linked to the actual betting revenue we receive. So that means that we as an organisation are also sustainable.
And that's key, because every state operates differently, but that's how the South Australian government operate, with what comes in, goes back out into, and that a little bit of that falls back onto, and this possibly won't be, popular, but the participants putting on a show so that they can drive that dollar up. So I actually don't mind that model. I know some people are going to turn around and say, oh no, they should know how much they're going to pay us and all the rest. But a little bit of the onus has to go back onto the participants to put on a good show for people to want to turn around and invest a dollar, which then goes back into their coffers.
From our perspective, it's the way that we can work best with the clubs and the industry to say, if we grow, if we put on as you say, a good show, if we, have great races and the like, and revenue increases, we all share.
Yep.
We all benefit.
You mentioned there before the greyhounds, and I did a chat. I do a little bit with a few of the greyhound guys here in Victoria with crosscodes and all the rest, and did an interview with Ray Border just recently, who's a very passionate South Australian person and also greyhound person, but he's actually a racing person as well. He wants the whole package to survive. But greyhound racing in South Australia was in more trouble than what harness racing is in, and they're actually coming out the other side very, very well, aren't they?
Yes, and look, the model that we're actually looking at is probably an improvement on what they currently pay. At the moment, and this is just my understanding, so please bear with me, is that they only pay 55% of the prize money out at the time, and then a bonus, 6 weeks later, depending on betting revenue. We are looking at doing 80% up front, and then any bonus within a 6-week period as well. So, but they've done it because it means that they're sustainable.
Yeah.
They are not paying out more than they earn, because anyone in business knows that just does not work.
Yeah.
But it's about improving the product as well.
Oh, it is, and I got the inclination, like there's a lot of very passionate people in harness racing, in racing, full stop. And I think one of my mantras is, I think anyone that turns around and says, oh, this is a harness racing only problem, or a greyhound racing or a thoroughbred only problem, are kidding themselves. Racing as such is a betting product that has to compete with basketballs, crickets, football, sports betting, and we need to unite. We need to grow things. When you have people like Ray Border, he said in the interview I did, he employs 1,200 people directly through his business. So he has great business knowledge, and he has got an industry that was on the nose, beyond on the nose after what happened with them, a few years ago, and the passion that they've been able to show. So it can be done, can't it? And it just starts with people understanding what is wanted. Yep,
I agree. And, we've looked at options as far as, is it better to have 9 horses in a field? Is it better to have 6 horses in a field? Is the handicapping right, and all of those things? Those are more operational things that the CE and the industry need to get together and discuss, more so than probably at a board level. But we need to understand it and be supportive.
You've got another meeting, you said, Nicolle, in about a month's time?
Yes.
And that is just basically to keep the wheels of dialogue and everything turning in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is correct. I'm happy to share some of the things that we covered in our first meeting as well, if you'd like.
You can, yeah, by all means.
We talked about HRSA having a financial health check. and the way and ensuring that we have a sustainable model going forward. We talked about how we communicate this with the industry, and so we need to actually work on some comms in that space. We talked about the lease with Globe Derby. We also talked about the fact that we've got a strategic plan, and we actually at that meeting shared the first 2 pages, which are quite high level, of that strategic plan with the clubs, and we have said to them, can you come back to us? Does this hit the mark for you? Is this, because it's pointless us as a board, having a beautiful strategic plan if the industry doesn't think it's going to work, doesn't cover the things that they need to address. Yep. Or help us address. So we put that to them and said, come back to us, give us feedback. Nothing's off the table. If you think something's on there that's not logical, please tell us, because you're closer to it than we are. We've also had recently a governance review, which was, have we got the right policies and procedures in place? Do we have things in relation to integrity, in relation to risk management and all of those things? We talked a little bit about that governance review, and we will share that as well. We'll share our like a summary of our financial health check. We'll share the governance review with the member clubs so that they understand the things that we have been doing and the things that we need to achieve going forward, because our future funding is also tied to us addressing the items in our governance review. We've also done, HRA have been really helpful in coming in and reviewing our operations and seeing what options we have to increase efficiencies within an office. We're a small office where everybody does a bit of this and a bit of that. Yep. If there's any options to, link with, say Victoria or anywhere else that can help us do some of the, the boring processing aspects to make life easier for the people in the office, so they can actually focus on the things we need them to focus on rather than the mundane or the processing aspect, which isn't value add. We've been doing a few things as well in the life after racing. Emma Grigson Gear in particular has been doing some work with Ross Neal, our CE, with a company called A Stable Life, which provides or does work with return service people who, you all know that, horses are great judges of character and can feel if people are upset or, just need a hug or a pat. So we're doing some work, and the people that run A Stable Life absolutely love standard breds. So we're looking at options to accredit those people going forward so that we can, have a home for our horses after racing. So we've said, we'd love to meet back with the member clubs on the around the middle of July and just give an update so that they know that we're actually progressing things. It's fine to have a first meeting and say we're going to do this, 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 and this, but if we don't actually deliver, then the industry needs to hold us as a board to account. And so,
I will say, and not that I'm hard-hitting journalism or anything like that, but coming on tonight, and like it's a Sunday night, we've done this. I'm actually wasn't sure how I was going to put it out. I'm going to put it out as soon as we finish this interview. But I think it shows that you are dedicated. You contacted me this afternoon to say let's do this today, so it wasn't me hounding you by any stretch. So that's one. Life after racing is beyond keen. Back to Ray Border with the greyhounds, that's one of the key things that they've done is trying to find them homes and trying to give a different avenue for those horses and greyhounds once they finish, and it's the same with the thoroughbreds as well. You've got a lot of challenges. People hear there before you said I think it was about committees and looking into things and making sure we've got the right process, and everyone will be going process. You've got to have them, especially when you're trying to grow an industry, that if you can meet a certain area and tick that off, you can raise that bar up a little bit. You won't have as many subcommittees and subcommittees and things along those lines to check it forward. These are all essential parts, but I think the number one thing you have to do is come out and tell people what you're doing, and that's what I think you've well and truly done tonight, Nicolle. You You haven't said no to any question. I may have missed a hard-hitting question. Who knows? People will probably tell me. But...
Look, if you've got one, by all means,
no.
I don't mind. I'm so happy to answer. If, as I said, if I can't answer it, I'll say I can't answer it. But it's so important that the industry gets a consistent message and we say exactly what we're doing. Yep. And if we stuff up, we'll tell you.
There was a couple of things you did say which I was really keen on. Again, trying to change to racing and harness racing. You mentioned there before about potentially doing some stuff with Victoria. I was down at Mount Gambier not long ago, and there was a lot of Victorians who race in Mount Gambier. There's a lot of Mount Gambier guys that race in Victoria, and especially through that COVID stage and all the rest, things like that got tricky. To be able to work with another state, I think, is key, and I think Victoria is probably the number one. You have a lot of West Australian horses backwards and forwards, and a lot of Victorian horses. But if we can grow a product, where Victorians are travelling across there, which means better betting turnover, we can do the same, similar to Mildura. Like Mildura is a gold mine right at the minute for harness racing, and Wayne Hill, Danny Hill, Simone, I forgot her name, Pascoe, young girls, Pascoe.
Sam Pascoe.
Sammy yes. Pascoe will be in trouble. They travel there. They go there all the time. So if we can get a model like that where the Mildura guys go to Globe Derby and put on better betting turnover as well, there's so many ways we can. So at least you guys are open to it. The number one thing that'll come up, and a lot of people will turn around and say it, is basically we hear that the members run Globe Derby, and because they don't want to budge, they're the ones that are holding the industry at ransom. You more or less said to me that's not actually true. It's a matter of trying to work out a financial lease, and one that's you can't get a lease and say this is what we want, because like everyone wants the best deal for themselves. There's two parties, so you've got to be able to work with both parties. But it's great that you have open dialogue with the members.
Look, from talking to Globe Derby, we have an excellent relationship. It's open. I'm happy to ring their president, any day of the week. Mr. Seymour has been brilliant in that he will correspond, or he will ring me if he's got an idea or the like. He's talked about, how can he help, as far as, we've written as a board to the government to ask for increased prize money funding and the like. Mr. Seymour's already said, how can he help as well?
Yep.
So we are, and as you say, we can't just say, well, here's the lease terms, take it or leave it. It's, they have to be a strong Globe Derby that is long-term sustainable, is just as important as a HRSA organisation being long-term sustainable. There's got to be give and take between us. We'd both like probably more money than we've actually got. But we've got to find a middle ground that we both can live with, so that we can both move forward in the right direction for the betterment of the industry. Can't get my words out.
You belong on Campbell's Comments. Don't worry about that. I have the same trouble a lot. I'm still not going to even try and say your surname. Nicolle, thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving up your Sunday afternoon. You've got family and the like. So I appreciate that. Thank you for coming on and being so honest and forthright. I really appreciate that as well. And I look forward to probably catching up with you. It might not be next month. It might be in a couple of months as things are progressing, and just give people a bit of an update. We might have a chair by that stage. They might want to come on and chat to me and probably open it up so people can actually get an understanding of what is actually going on. But I really do appreciate you giving me the time.
Look, I'm more than happy if you want to have a catch up after our next meeting with the shareholders. More than happy to have a chat. I'm also, if you ever want to open it up for me to ask questions live, etc., more than happy. I love, like last night I went for a wander around the stables and, went for a ride in the mobile. Love that. I want to engage with the industry because if you engage, you understand. So hopefully it pushes us in the right direction.
If you didn't have a government job, I'd put you on the payroll for Campbell's Comments. Not that anyone's on the payroll, but I actually appreciate that. We might do that live. I might put it out there.
More than happy.
We'll put it out there in the comments here on the Facebook page that if the South Australians want to have a live and Victorians and other people want to get involved, we could have a live Q&A. We won't do it.
Yep.
We won't do it tomorrow by any stretch, but in a couple of weeks we can come.
More than happy. And if I can't answer, I would say, you know, I don't have the answer to that.
Very good,
But
Nicolle. Thank you so much.
not a problem at all.
You're doing a great job because you got up here. I love it. I love your passion. I think it's great. Mobile rides are one of the most underrated things. We need to build mobiles where we can take more people, because how easy is it to sell the industry? Put people in the back of a car and away they go.
It is awesome. You know, when they're coming up, you know, scoring up and, you know, they're this far away, you sort of go, wow.
Yep.
How skillful. You don't realise how skillful the drivers are to actually get everything in a line and sort it. I love it.
Yep. And you had a couple of great races last night. Emain Macca, Van Maro, and there was one
Yes.
other. That was a brilliant race. I watched that live, and it was
the one where there was 4 across the track.
that was the same race. Yeah.
Yes, you know, you didn't know who, and the one that actually I think held on was tough.
Yep. Yeah.
So-
very, very tough. No, racing's. I really appreciate your time. So I thank you.
I backed Gator in the last because she said.
I love Gator. Yeah, she has her dark clouds over her head, but I do love her. And so please say hello to her for me.
Yes.
I haven't seen her for a long time. So if you see her next, tell her I said hello.
I will. And who won the? Bentley. I think it's Bentley.
Yep.
Won the Scamper last night, which was really good.
I didn't see that race because
So
unfortunately.
I only know because I got to pat it before it raced.
Nicolle, thank you very much for joining Campbell's Comments.
You're very welcome. Have a good night.